Reid.
For all of you from Nevada, it's good to be home. I've spent an inordinate amount of time the last few months dealing with deficits and problems that relate to that. I just got a message here a few minutes ago that Senator Murray and Congressman Hensarling have announced the Chief of Staff for the Select Committee that was my idea to see if it could help our country move forward to a more reasonable financial approach to what's going on in our country and the world. And I think the chances are significantly good that we can do something with this Select Committee. They're going to start holding hearings more than likely next week. We have a very short timeline to arrive at something, and I'm glad I came up with the idea, and it's certainly worth a try to see if we can move forward. There's tremendous pressure on this Select Committee, because if they don't arrive at a conclusion that's meaningful, then we go into what we call sequestration, which would be across-the-board cuts. I spoke to Secretary Panetta the last few days, and those cuts would be extremely, extremely difficult for the security of our country. So I wish this 12 members of the Select Committee the very best to move forward in arranging our country's finances. This is the fourth one of these clean energy summits that we have done. It's hard to reflect, really hard, on how much has happened since we first met. We're meeting at the City Center, which was under construction at the time, just beginning to be constructed. They're one of the sponsors, MGM Resorts, are one of the sponsors of this event. We're holding the event at the new City Center. ARIA is part of the City Center, the largest LEED Gold certified development in the world. I am sure you've noticed the luxury of this premier resort. It is really luxurious. I stayed here last night. It's a wonderful, wonderful hotel. So I'm so proud of this facility. But what you haven't noticed is the efforts to save electricity, water, and waste, all as you enjoy the luxurious places that this whole city center has. Last year alone, this environmentally conscious development and the other properties they have in the United States saved 140 million kilowatt hours of electricity. 33% of the company's waste, 56,000 metric tons of carbon emissions have been saved, and 200 million gallons of water. Very impressive. And this has been done without guests like me noticing. It's just the same as other facilities, if not better. And knowing that what they've done for the environment certainly is a step forward. Companies like MGM are leading the way in the service industry, and that's certainly true. But we also not only appreciate them being a new sponsor of this event, but also thank our veteran sponsors. The Center for American Progress is an outstanding organization, started in 2003 by the genius of John Podesta, and they're looking for ideas continually, ideas that allow this country to move forward. They have senior fellows, some of whom I've worked with in different aspects of government and the private sector, who are certainly people who are noted. We have Lawrence Korb, who's worked in Republican and Democratic administrations, Gene Sperling, who was part of this organization initially and is now back doing yeoman's work at the new White House. My friend Tom Daschle, my predecessor, is now part of this great organization, and many other significant figures. So we appreciate their helping us again. UNLV, They've had a difficult time, as a number of universities have had around the country, because of the budget cuts that they've had been forced to make. But they have been a pioneer in developing renewable energy from the very beginning. It used to be something that was really kind of an oddity, a solar array down on near Paradise Road. People wondered what it was. People would come from all over the community to see what it was. Well, it was a solar array. Now they're just matter of fact. They're all over, but they were the leader in this as far as putting something forward that you could see. UNLV has been involved with the Department of Energy and doing research at the Nevada test site with solar energy. And they've been a remarkably far-sighted institution, giving graduate degrees in renewable energy. So we are grateful for their assistance. I think it's important to note that what we're doing here today is we have environmentalists here, engaged citizens, people from the academic world, people from the private sector, to see what can be done to advance this country's energy prowess. That's really what it's all about. Advanced energy technology, from new vehicles and smarter appliances to more efficient electric grids, cleaner power plants, have the power change the way we live our lives for the better. It's a pathway to secure a more independent and secure America, one that isn't dependent on oil from unstable regions of the world, but rather embraces the American spirit of innovation. You will see here conversations regarding manufacturing, construction, who have struggled to find jobs. With this renewable energy, we now have 2.7 million people involved in this around our country. The summit gives us a glimpse of what our clean energy future really is. What progress has been made over the last 3 years when we had our first energy summit. And there are all kinds of examples in the displays that were given. But the one that really strikes me is this. I don't know if you can see how large this is. I showed it to my wife this morning. It was on a card. It was on a card, this card, Luxem. And I told her, I said, this is the size of streetlights now. Streetlights that are this big. She said, you mean the card? I said, no, this. And this, if you look at the displays we have here, you look at Luxem's display, and they will show you modern streetlights. Here it is. Most of you can't see it. It is so very, very small. But that's what the future of America is all about. Streetlights from being this big to being this big. And in the process, saving huge amounts of energy. These trade show curiosities that were just curiosities are no longer just curiosities. They are the tools and gadgets that we will not be able to live without tomorrow. And this is one example. So many of the technologies that have been previewed during the last 3 National Clean Energy Summits have already changed the way we live. There are many examples. I've shown you only one. The future of energy is now. Some of the greatest minds of the industry are here to tell us why. We'll hear from Vice President Joe Biden. He'll talk about several Nevada projects that are leading the way to new future energy frontiers, what the administration is doing to ensure companies nationwide are following their footsteps to remain competitive. We have Western governors, we have policy leaders, public policy leaders, business leaders that will tell us why clean energy innovation isn't just good for the earth, it's also good for our wallets. And that's true whether you're a consumer or a corporation, even giant corporations. We have here John Wellinghoff. John Wellinghoff is one of my prize appointments. I gave his name to the president. He became a member of FERC and now is the chairman of FERC. And although you don't read a lot about John Wellinghoff, those of us involved in energy understand that the problem we've had with energy has been really a lot of different areas. But nothing has been more difficult than the ability to move energy where it's produced is where it's needed. Some say the average time for the building of a power line in America is 19 years. Well, let's say they exaggerate a little bit. Let's say it's only 15 years. That is far too long. We now have the ability to produce large amounts of renewable energy in places where a lot of people don't live, and we need to move it where a lot of people do live. John Wellinghoff has been on the cutting edge of that technology, allowing energy to move more quickly. There's of course, example of one of the things we've done here in Nevada is to be able to move energy from northern Nevada to southern Nevada. That project is now under construction, which we've been trying to do for decades. So we're grateful that John Wellinghoff has taken the time to be here to this event. Ray Mabus, Secretary of the Navy, will discuss how this great part of our national defense is reducing reliance on foreign oil. And in addition to being the finest naval fighting force in the world, the Navy is doing its part to protect the nation by reducing its own use of fossil fuels. We just did a press event a few minutes ago, and I mentioned there that I met Stephen Chu, Dr. Chu, 3 years ago at the first of these events. I was excited to meet him because we knew that he had recently received a Nobel Prize for Science, for physics, and I wanted to have the opportunity to meet him. And recognizing that my prowess in math is not great, the most memorable thing I remember about my math career is begging Mr. Gallinger to make me eligible so I could play football in my geometry class. But I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Chu, and I was, as I said, excited to do that. But during the conversation that I had with him that day, on several different occasions during the day, I came to the realization that he wasn't only a genius in the fields of mathematics and science, but also someone who understood what was going on in the world and had the ability to communicate simple ideas and make them meaningful. And his ability to do this has been wonderful for our country. One of the president's fine choices in his cabinet has to have this academic wonder as part of the cabinet, and someone who not only, as I said, can do academically what few people can do, but also has the ability to communicate as few people can do. So it's my pleasure to introduce to everyone here today the recipient of the Nobel Prize for Physics, which certainly is someone who knows and spur innovation. He holds 10 patents. He's published more than 250 scientific and technical papers. He was a director of Lawrence Livermore Labs. He has been a personal leader in the search for solutions to climate change. And during the Obama administration, he's been one of the reasons, if not the main reason, that we've made huge investments in clean energy a priority. The best way to create good paying jobs, and you can't ship them overseas, is to do something with renewable energy. And since his day job really keeps him very busy, but it doesn't keep him busy enough that he still has been able to publish. He just recently published scientific work on the general relativity and the single molecular biology and biophysics. Boy, I had no trouble saying that, let alone trying to understand what it is, but he just recently published a paper in that regard. The world is a better place because of Dr. Stephen Chu, Secretary of Energy for our great country. Dr. Chu.